but with the gentleness of someone who had decided to share it. "I hope you don't mind me coming again," she said softly, her voice warmer than the morning light. "I've been thinking about you all night." She paused, then added, "I suppose that sounds strange, but I mean it kindly." Andre nodded, not trusting his voice just yet. She looked around the store, then leaned a little closer, as though what she was about to say belonged only to the air between them. "I've lived in that big house for a very long time," she began, "and it has never felt so quiet as it did this morning. Not even after my husband passed. Not even after my grandson." She trailed off, then drew a breath. "You remind me of him, you know. His kindness, his eyes, the way he always listened more than he spoke. And when you helped me that night, without asking, without expecting, something in me woke up. Something that had been sleeping for years." Andre looked down, the tips of his fingers curling slightly against the edge of the counter. Evelyn reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Handwritten, slightly trembling lines of ink on thick stationery. "This is not a contract," she said. "It's not a deal or an arrangement. It's simply an invitation. I have a home with too many rooms and too few reasons to keep them closed. I'd like you to stay, just until you find your footing. No strings, only support." Andre opened the note slowly. It was an offer to stay at the estate, a modest monthly stipend, and written beneath that, in softer script, a promise. "We'll find a way for you to return to school, if you still want that." He didn't speak for a long time. The world outside the window moved as if through syrup. Cars passed slowly, leaves turned in the breeze, and the town went about its day. Unaware that inside this little store, something important was quietly shifting. Finally, Andre looked up and met her eyes, not with fear, but with something steadier. "I'd like that," he said. "I'd like to come." And so he did. That afternoon, Charles came by with a car, not out of ceremony, but because Evelyn insisted Andre not ride that creaking bicycle up the long hill again. He packed his few belongings in a backpack, said goodbye to Mr. Johnson, who only nodded and handed him a paper bag of sandwiches and a muttered, "About time," and then climbed into the back seat of a vehicle that smelled faintly of pine and possibility. Life at the estate was not extravagant. It was peaceful. Andre was given a sunlit room that overlooked the garden, a schedule that allowed him to rest, read, and, within the month, return to school. With the help of a scholarship fund Evelyn created quietly in his name. She never paraded his story, never treated him like a pet project. Instead, she welcomed him into the rhythm of her days. Morning walks in the greenhouse, long discussions over tea, and weekends filled with ideas about what they could do with the time and resources they now shared. Together, they created something Evelyn had dreamed of, but never built alone. A small foundation funded from her estate, called the Willow Light Fund, in honor of the street she couldn't remember and the kindness she would never forget. Its mission was simple: to support young people with potential but no path, to shelter the elderly who had slipped through the cracks, and to remind anyone listening that dignity and care were not luxuries. They were birthrights. Andre helped design the first programs, met with counselors, worked part-time at the community center the foundation renovated, and every so often still rode his old bicycle into town. Not because he had to, but because it reminded him of where he had begun and what one small act of grace could grow into when offered without expectation. And each time he passed the old bus stop where it all began, he would slow down just a little, tip his head toward the sky, and smile. Because sometimes you don't find home. It finds you. And sometimes all it takes to change the course of a life is the willingness to stop, to see someone clearly, and to ride a little farther than you planned. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy. Andre hesitated, something flickering behind his eyes. The idea of going back to that house, of stepping into a world that didn't belong to him, felt like standing barefoot at the edge of a polished ballroom floor. He was just a delivery boy, with no place to sleep, no family, no finish line. He had done what was right, that was all. I.J. Charles regarded him for a moment, neither offended nor insistent. "And you did," he replied. "But she believes you gave her more than directions. She said you gave her back a sense of herself. She'd very much like to tell you that in person." Andre looked toward Mr. Johnson, who shrugged with the same indifference he used to mask concern. "Go," he said. "Your cot will be here if you need it." With a breath that felt too large for his chest, Andre nodded and followed Charles out. The drive to Oak Hill was surreal in daylight. The trees that had loomed like shadows the night before now stood tall and still, sentinels of some secret forest path. The turns felt shorter, the hills less steep, but Andre still remembered every one of them, each stone and slope etched into the memory of his legs. When they reached the grand white house, it no longer looked like a monument, but a memory, familiar, softened by the hour. Charles led him through the side entrance into a room filled with sun and old books and quiet warmth. There, seated by the window, was Evelyn, not the dazed, wandering woman from the night before, but someone entirely different. Her eyes were sharp, her hair neatly pinned, and when she saw Andre, her smile broke over her face like morning over mountains. "You," she breathed, her voice trembling just enough to show its truth. "You brought me home." She reached for his hands, her grip gentle but insistent. "I remember everything, every street, every word. You didn't treat me like a stranger. You made me feel safe." Andre bowed his head, unsure what to say, the praise feeling too large for the simple act he had performed. But Evelyn wasn't done. She leaned forward, her eyes searching his. "I don't know your story," she said, "but I'd like to. And if you don't have a place to go, I would be honored to offer you one here, not just for tonight. For longer, if you'd let me. This house has too many rooms and not enough kindness. You would change that?" Andre blinked, the offer catching him completely off guard. It was generous. More than generous. And yet something in him resisted. He took a step back, his voice low but steady. "That's kind of you, really. But I didn't do this to get anything. I just wanted you to be safe. That's all." Evelyn's eyes didn't waver. "And that," she said softly, "is exactly why I want you to stay." He didn't answer right away. The silence between them stretched, gentle but uncertain, filled with a feeling that neither of them could quite name. And though Andre would return to the market that night, would sleep again in the storeroom and wake to the same cold, something had shifted. He had been seen, not for what he lacked, but for what he carried. The quiet, steady light of someone who showed up even when no one was watching. And far from that sunlit room, Evelyn sat with a heart less alone, already preparing for tomorrow, when she would offer again. Not out of charity, but out of recognition. Because sometimes family is not who we are born to, but who we choose to walk home with in the dark. The next morning came with a gentler sky, brushed with faint streaks of pale gold that peeked shyly through the faded curtain of cloud, as if the sun itself were hesitant to intrude on the stillness of the day. Inside the back room of Johnson's Market, Andre had risen early as always, sweeping the floor and organizing crates in neat, quiet stacks, his mind too full of Evelyn's visit the day before to focus on the rhythm of work. He had replayed her words through the night again and again, each syllable lingering like the last note of a hymn that refused to fade. Her presence had not overwhelmed the room. It had warmed it. And yet, Andre had not known what to do with such a gift. He'd never had anything offered so freely, so tenderly, and certainly not from someone who looked at him without judgment, only with hope. As he set down a box of canned peaches, the doorbell jingled, not in the usual impatient clatter of a regular customer, but in a soft, measured chime that felt familiar. He looked up from behind the counter, and there she was again. Evelyn rose. This time with no driver, no coat of grandeur, just a wool shawl wrapped neatly over her shoulders and a small leather handbag tucked into the crook of her arm. Her expression was kind, her eyes already searching the room for him, like she knew exactly where he would be. Andre straightened instinctively, his hands wiping unconsciously on his jeans as he stepped forward. She smiled and walked toward him, not with the authority of someone used to commanding space, but with the gentleness